Did you have to unlearn some of the things that you learned at Wimbledon in order to carry on in a different way?
In life and in football, in sport, it's not just one way. As I said, we was about sticking together, being physical. We had some players that could play, but when you transform that to the entertainers, you've got to have a little bit more. You can't just be physical, strong, intimidating people. There now must be a final product. There must be a calmness in your play. There must be a philosophy in the way you're going to play.
It's all evolution because you've seen it all, and you're still, in a way, you're still in there. You're in America. It's going to be the World Cup, so you see how quick things are going. What's the most important thing for you throughout this evolution?
I think the evolution that I've done is I've had the respect of the game, that the game is changing. VAR's come in. I remember when there was more substitutions. There was different rules that was coming along. So that you have to go with the changes. You have to go with that. If you sit still in any business, or particularly in sport, you're going to get pushed aside. You've got to keep evolving.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Players Lounge on FBT, where the game gets down to business. Today, we're joined on the Players Lounge, where you're going to be, comfortable. You sit down, and you will joined by somebody, a player that we have a lot in common. Not the age, we get a bit of an age gap, I gotta say, but we got a lot in common. He's done things. I follow his footsteps, but nonetheless, without further ado, welcome to the Players Lounge, Mr. Warren Barton. Warren, how are we doing?
I'm doing very well, my friend. I'm in lovely Southern California, where the sunshine is shining 364 days of the year. I've just got back from the UK, but yeah, pleasure to be with you, and yeah, really looking forward to this. Really looking forward to it.
Now, just before I get into it, how is it to live in that weather, in that environment?
It's beautiful. It's like Groundhog Day because you just put shorts and a t-shirt on. It was a big move. I retired playing football in '05. In '08, my wife and three young boys decided to move to San Diego, California. But the lifestyle, my friend, the kids would finish school, would go down the beach. 2 hours in the winter, you can go skiing. So yeah, I've been very, very lucky. It was a big opportunity for us to come out here. I've done the media work. I've done some coaching. So yeah, it's a great part of the world. It's the bubble in the bubble, as I say, because as I said, it's sunny, beautiful conditions. You pay for it with the taxes, but that's California. But yeah, as I said, it's a great opportunity for my kids to grow up. It's nice to come back to England, but knowing in the back of my mind I'm coming back to some heat and sunshine for another 150 days. So it's very pleasing. But yeah, big move, but we've took to it very well, me and my wife. And it's nice to go back and visit, but it's also nice to come here and relax as well.
Yeah, it does change you from England. And when I look back, and I looked at your career, and I looked back, and I was like, Warren, you lived a pretty, I would say, extreme life of football from from different perspective, from, I would say, the, I don't know, the crazy gang to the entertainers to America. There's a lot of things. If I take you back a little bit to those days, how did football started for you? How was your mentality back in the days approaching football?
Yeah, I mean, I was a boy from North London, trying to, like every boy, trying to be a professional football player, trying to live the dream. When I was very young, I was at Arsenal at 11 or 12 in the academy. Decided to go to Watford and got told you're too small. So I didn't have the access of where you go to the academy, you go through the age groups, 16, 19 in the first team. I had to play lower league football, non-league football, which I think Seb set me up nicely for my mentality in life. No one gives you anything. You have to work for that. I'd come from a family where the mum and dad was divorced. My mum had three jobs. I have an older brother and sister. So it wasn't a pictured relationship, but my life was all about football. I had great support for, as I said, from my brother and sister and my mum. And, just my dream was to play football. That's all I really knew. Like a lot of kids, I should have maybe done a lot more at school. But at that time, in my life and that time in the world, it was more, try and get try and get an education or go and get a trade. And I ended up playing lower league football, as I said, which was great. You can imagine at 17 years of age, I was about 5'3", 5'4", walking into a changing room with a builder, electrician, a policeman, a guy that would pack boxes. And if we didn't win the game and it was my fault, they definitely let me know about it. So that was a real learning curve for me.
Yeah, and that's I remember. I mean, my time was a bit different, but that was a bit of the same. But for you, how did that really shape your identity? Because I'm a firm believer that the way we are as a man define the way we are as a player. It's not the
Yeah,
player that makes the man; it's the man that makes the player. And you going through lower league and then going into some tough dressing room. You being, I would say, not the biggest, young. When you look back, how did that affect the way you saw life and you saw your football career?
yeah. I think my life, whatever challenges was thrown at me, whether a mum and dad divorce, whether that's being told you're too small, whether that's being cut from a team, whether that's having to walk into a changing room where you're the youngest player, smallest player. I'm 6 foot now and I grew and everything else, just a late developer. So it made me resilient. And that's how it's made me in my life as well, because as well as I do, it's not easy playing in the Premier League. It's not easy, with the expectations, with the pressure, with particularly playing for a club like Newcastle. It's a city that's only got one football club in it. You can't go and hide like you can in London and other clubs. But it's something that I relish. That I look back on my time and think I gave everything. And I always remember, when I was 18, 19, still trying to get into that next level that, my friends would be going out to a bar on a Friday, Saturday. I was going out for a run. That's all I really wanted to do. I knew I didn't have the background maybe to be an accountant or a lawyer or anything like that. My background was about hard work, commitment, and that's how it shaped me up in my life. Whether it's been even when that Premier League dream was there, I still worked hard. I still did things out of the game. I still worked for the PFA. So a lot of the way I played in particular was, being physical, running, working hard. I wasn't the most gifted, but no one was going to outwork me. And then when I look back on my career, that's what got me through some tough times, And as I said to you, it's not easy to play for Newcastle. They let you know if you're not doing well, and it can suffocate people. But I've relished that opportunity, and I think that come from my grounding at home. I think it come from my grounding playing lower league football. I think the area of London where I was come from as well. No one was too big for that area. If you did, you got a slap. It was quite simple. If you started thinking you was bigger and better than anybody else, there'd be someone that would, like my old mum says, there's always someone bigger, stronger, richer. So, someone would put you in your place. But I think that gave me a great foundation to be resilient, to appreciate what I got, and I loved every moment of playing football. It's not something that it just come along, and as I said, in academy, and it was just a next process. I relished every minute of it, and when you do get the opportunity to play for the crazy gang, which again said was ideal for me because I walk into a change room that they was exactly the same as the mentality. They'd come through the ranks, so no one was too big for that club. No one was too big-headed or better. Everyone grounded you. The likes of Vinnie Jones, he'd put you in your place. Big John fashioned you. If you thought you was,
Vinnie Jones.
yeah,
I'm a foreigner. The crazy, me being a foreigner, I knew about the crazy gang, and I was young because you don't. I think that you guys don't realize how impactful you were, even beyond the British football, beyond UK. That kind of dressing room, maybe not for you, but do you think that that can break people? That can, like that can either make you or break you? Because I know you have such a good memories of it because they were you were like me personally. I would have loved to play for the Crazy Gang.
yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, I would have loved that. But when you look back, some players could have been maybe a bit intimidated by that dressing room.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about that. I'll give you an instance. I broke into the first team, my first season. We're playing Everton. That was a good Everton team. With the likes of Peter Reid was still playing, Andy Gray. They had a lot of good players, a strong mentality, hard players. So we played against them, and there was a little scuffle on the halfway line. A tackle had gone in, pushing and shoving. I'd gone to break the situation up, being the peacemaker. Well, I found out pretty quickly at half time with John Fashion, who literally picked me up by my shorts and threw me against the wall and said, "Don't ever do that again. It's always us against them." And that's how we're going to win games. That's how we won games in the tunnel. That's how we won teams in the first 15, 10 minutes of a game. So that made me realize as well that you can win a game not just by the football side, but also the mentality of being tougher than anybody else, looking at someone and winning a game. You know what it's like. I was lucky enough to play against the great Invincibles, and when you look across and you've got Tony Adams, or you've got Terry Henry, all 6'2", then Petit, Vieira, Martin Keown, David. These great players, they win a lot of the games in the tunnel, because you think, how are you going to beat them? You can't physically beat them. You can't mentally bully them. So on another aspects, Wimbledon was like that. Like, we knew physically we would intimidate teams, the likes of Southampton, Norwich, these teams. It was only really Sir Alex Ferguson put it in his book. He knew they would win a title when they didn't get intimidated by Wimbledon. And that's a backhanded compliment, because it wasn't everybody's cup of tea the way we played. But we've seen players come in, and with John Fashanu throwing me against the wall, I could have gone the other way and said, "Oh, I don't want any part of this." But I bought into it. I thought, he's right. We've got to stick together. Like my family, we stick together. We're going to have good times and bad times. So that again was the build up of my education through life.
And for me, when you put the aggression aside, that's your USP. That's what makes you. That's your authenticity as a team. And I think sometimes people, they shy away from what they're good at, and you had to use what you were good at. And for me, in order for us to hear from you even abroad, it means that was pretty impressive. But in terms of leadership, you mentioned you learned a lot of things about it. But what did you? I mean, you told me what you learned, but what did you have to unlearn later on? Because of this moment, because it's so impactful in your life. Did you have to unlearn some of the things that you learned at Wimbledon in order to carry on in a different way later on?
Yeah, I mean, so that's a great question. In life and in football, in sport, it's not just one way. As I said, we was about sticking together, being physical. We had some players that could play, but when you transform that to the entertainers, you've got to have a little bit more. You can't just be physical, strong, intimidating people. There now must be a final product. There must be a calmness in your play. There must be a philosophy in the way you're going to play, and a style of football. Wimbledon had their own style of football. So as much as I learnt that side of the important part of the game, when you're going up the ladder for winning trophies, competing in Champions League, you can't just go around kicking Figo. I played against Figo. He's more than that. So that's when you have to adapt from going to a club like Wimbledon to then Newcastle, where there's a certain expectation, there's a certain name, the entertainers. That's what we had to do. And also, you've got to try and win games and be resilient as well. So I learned a lot from my time at Wimbledon about that gets you that far. What can get you to the promised land, which is hopefully, winning trophies, playing for my country, etc., etc. So as much as Wimbledon, and I went there as a young boy and I left there as a man, there was still more to add to the game. But it gave me such a great foundation as a person that anything that was going to be thrown at me at Newcastle, I could handle it. I could handle it. It's one way, we wasn't lucky there where we could confide in someone, speak to someone about it. You had to deal with it within. And when you're a 24, 25-year-old boy from London going up to Newcastle, you can't be seen as a weakness. You've got to deal with it, which is tough sometimes. You know that. Playing up there, there's no way to hide. You can't hide anywhere. You go into a shop, you go anywhere. You are you are owned by the fans and the football club, but that gives you so much responsibility, and it can suffocate people. You know,
It actually can, but personally, I absolutely loved it because I was I was younger than you. I was 19 when I got to Newcastle, so I was a bit fearless. But honestly, how did you that time? Okay, that time with Sir Kevin Keegan, because I had it as a manager as well. I had him as a manager. How did it impact your life? Because for me, Kevin Keegan, Sir Kevin Keegan, impacted my life as a man. When he took me under his wing, when I came, the way he was speaking to me, even though I always asked him to slow down because I didn't understand English properly. But yeah, the way he impacted my life, and I knew about him. So I was overwhelmed being coached by Kevin Keegan. At the same time, he was so close to me. He was helping me. So how did it come about with you?
yeah. At that time in the mid 90s, I was speaking to Arsenal, spoken to David Dean, I spoke to Celtic, Sheffield Wednesday, actually Everton as well. There was quite a few. I'd gone to see Kenny Dalglish at Blackburn, but I met Kevin Keegan, and as you said, when you meet Kevin, he has a great way of making you feel so special. Like you are the number one, you are the best. And he genuinely means it at that time. It can change because he's so emotional. But he had a way of telling me how he was going to bring Les Ferdinand to the club. He had a Ginola, the plan that he was going to do. The city was vibrant. There was lots of jobs being done. There was lots of building work being done in the city. The stadium was going to get to 50 or 1,000 people. So there wasn't too much that he had to sell, but just his personality and the way he would think about you as a person. He'd always ask me about my family. You know, the first game, I never forget it. First game of the season, he made sure that I was in a hotel. I had 15 of my family members come up. He put them on the train, first class travel on the train. And the first thing he said when I got to the stadium, not how do you feel about the game? It was, did your family get up here okay? And that, as a young player, to have a mentor like Kevin Keegan, um, is so calming because you feel like he's looking after your outcome in the future. And then you've got him as a manager. You know, listen, he can be, ruthless, and that's what makes good managers. And he could, put you in your place. And he was a certain way of playing for the club, but he also had a great way of bringing you to a level where it is about enjoying what you're doing. It is about your family. It is about having fun and look what you've got around you and appreciate what you're doing. So, yeah, KK was wonderful in that respect. When we was winning, it was great. Not so good when we was losing.
Yeah, I know. And you around that time you became from the boy. I mean, the boy from Islington, from North London, became the most expensive defender in British football. How was it at that time to deal with that price tag and that label? How was it in general, and how was it for you personally? How did that emotionally? How did you handle it? How did you cope?
Well, initially, I was very proud. Like I said, going back to where I'd come from, and then to have that as your tag, the British most record defender. I tell you what was brilliant for me. Said 2 days later, they broke the record for Les Ferdinand. So I was history. So I had for 48 hours, I was I was the king, and then it got changed around. So that helped me a lot in the sense that Les Ferdinand come through the door, David Ginola walked through the door, Shaka Hislop come through the door, Tino Asprilla. So there was a conveyor. But I think if you're the number one, all eyes would be on you. But there wasn't. There was a list of great players and talented players that was coming through the door. But it was very proud as an individual because, as I said, to have someone want to spend that money on you. Wimbledon, played a bit of a hard bargain to deal with. They wanted as much as they can for me. But yeah, very proud. But I got out of jail a little bit because Les come through the door and his was 6 million. So all eyes was on Les.
Yeah, obviously, and Les was a striker. So, but did that? How that pressure? Because did you feel pressured or not? By the way.
Not really. As I said, a lot of excitement. I remember saying to Kevin Keegan, when you think someone spends 4 million today, that's nothing. That's someone's wages for a couple of months, But at the time, it was a record for. And I remember speaking to Kevin Keegan after about 7 or 8 games in. We was flying. We was top of the league. Everything was going well. I said, I feel like I can do more. I feel like I've got more to offer, more to play. Maybe because subconsciously, because of the price tag, I think I should be doing more. He said, "You're doing fine. Just do your job. That's all I bought you for." And that's when he can bring you back down to earth and say, "Okay, you don't need to do anything. I can give the ball to Rob Lee or Peter Beardsley or David Ginola, and then them do things." I was part of a jigsaw going together, and he wanted me to be physically going forward, defending a group as a back four and working with our goalkeeper. So, you felt internally that you've spent that money, so I've got to be something else. And I think that was a real learning curve for me then. It's like, he's bought you to do your job. He's not bought you to be anything else except the Warren Barton that he see at Wimbledon. So, that was again another like, okay, fine, I get it. I haven't got to do this, and this. I can just do my job, and we're winning games, we're scoring goals, we're having fun. So it just become a natural progression as we was playing the games.
And how that progression becomes so natural to go across the pond, because how a born and raised richish North London boy, because I'm in North London, that's what I'm proud about. I know I'm proud about it. How did he end? How does he think or have the courage? Because for me, you got to put things back in perspective in the context. We're back in the day. We're not talking about that. Even at my time, when I came, I was surprised that British players never leave. They never left. They always stayed. How did, I mean, what went through your mind to go to the US and to be so successful and to go into coaching? Yeah, talk to me, because for me, I'm amazed, because I'm amazed.
Yeah, we don't travel very well, the Brits. We like our comforts. We like our surroundings, being around. But when I was playing, and you know what it's like in the summer, you might get like 3 or 4 weeks off. So me and my wife at the time, we didn't have kids. We loved to travel, whether it was going to the Far East or particularly at my time of my life now, it was coming to America. America was like the place you had to go to. That's where it was great to. So we visited, whether it's Chicago, Seattle, obviously New York, we go to Florida, we travel around. And I just love the positivity that they had. I knew the game of football was growing. At that time, Seb, I was also involved with the PFA on the committee, and obviously ultimately come chairman for a couple of years. So I knew my career was never going to go on forever. We spoke about it off camera. When you're 24, 25, you think your career is going to go on forever. You don't think you're ever going to retire. But being in that environment and seeing players get injured, coming to the end of their career, it sort of got alarm bells in my head to think, what am I going to do when I finish? Where am I going to be going? And as I said, I love England, and I'm very proud to be English, and I love the UK, and I love visiting. But I just felt America had more to offer for me in the sense of the life, the quality of life. As I said, living in California, the heat was there, the beach, for my kids to grow up. I think as a father, going through what I went through, listen, it wasn't the toughest life in the world, but we had to, survive sometimes in life. I probably have 2 or 3 fights before I got home. So that's how our life was in London. So that's what we've had to go through. I didn't want my kids, not that I want to cover them, but I want them to experience, other things in life. And that means growing up in a foreign country, although the language is the same, the food, and everything, that was a lot more easier. But it is a big challenge leaving your family, leaving my mum, brother and sister, and the same with my wife. But we just felt as a family, it was a great opportunity to do it. So I had great support from my wife, and there was a feeling inside that it was the right time to come along. So there was a lot of things that we put into it. I'd just finished my pro license as well. I'd had a great mentor, Stuart Pearce, when he was at Newcastle for a couple of years. He was my room partner, and he made me think about coaching outside of life as well as what had happened with the PFA. So, from that respect, Seb, I knew my career was coming to an end. I knew it would happen sometime. It was then just trying to navigate where I wanted to be. Because if I stayed in England, you end up, I don't know, going on golf days. You end up traveling. You don't really focus on you and my family. And I wanted to pick my kids up from school. I wanted to take them to school. I wanted to take them down the beach. I wanted to look after them. I wish I bloody know now, because 15 years later, they only want me to Venmo them money. They don't need me anymore to do anything. But for that 15 years when I first come over was great. I coached my kids. I was around my kids. So no one can ever take that away from me now. So I've had that experience with my kids.
But from what I hear, you needed to be from a young age very laser focused because you were very goal oriented. You set a goal and you do everything you have to do. So by you moving abroad, especially in the new culture, when the football, soccer for them wasn't really popping for me at the time. And you saw the development. I can even say that you've been part of the development. How did you assess, or how do you assess the difference in terms of cultural and football wise between the British system and the American system? And what did you bring from the UK today?
Yeah, I mean, another great point as well. David Beckham had just come to America, and that took the league onto a whole new level. They'd had in the past, in the 70s, people like Pele, but there was an underlying current of not sure that visibility wasn't there through TV, through the internet at that time. But when David Beckham come along, and I'd already done a bit of research coming out on vacation, I'd worked with Adidas because it was Newcastle's main sponsor. I'd come out and done soccer camps for them. So I could see that it was underlying, it was coming along. It really reminded me of what the Premier League was in the early 90s. It was young, it was vibrant, it was exciting. And I thought if you can get into that momentum, and what I loved as well, England is great. But we have a lot of history. Everyone says this is how you got to do it. This is the way to do it. Over here, it was a blank piece of paper. And right, how are we going to go about it? You had Italians, you had South Americans, you have Europe, the English coming in. Everyone's got their own opinion of how to play. And that's then a melting pot of how the game is materialized now. You've just had Messi win MLS Cup, arguably the best player that's ever played the game is now playing in America. They've got the World Cup coming along. But I did see that in 2008, 2009, how it was building with the likes of David Beckham. What I did bring from 30 odd years of experience is that professionalism of being a football player in England. You know what it's like. It does matter playing for Newcastle. It does matter when you train. You have one bad game, you may not play the next game. You go into training on the Monday, you have a bad training session. People will say one or two. You have two bad training sessions. Now, all of a sudden, people are thinking you're a bad player. You have three, you're out of the team. You're out of it. You might even. So it can be that important. And again, going back to what you said earlier, it can be so demanding on people. And that's why people quit. That's why people can't handle that type of scenario because it is cutthroat and you've got to have that. But and I think you're the same sort of mentality. I thrived in that. I love training. I wasn't a trainer that was like just going through the motions. Every time I trained, I wasn't great, but every time I gave my best. And that's how much I love doing it. And then you hopefully bring that onto the field. So I see that mentality when I was coaching with the Galaxy. What was great for me, Seb, was about looking at the American mentality. So I'm on the field, and I'll just give you an instance. I worked for LA Galaxy over in '08. I'm at the field, training sessions at 6. I'm there at 5:15, set up, ready to go. I've got players that are supposed to be at elite level, 18 and 16-year-olds, coming with Vans on their feet, their shoes, the Vans. So not like trainers or sneakers. They're walking in a pair, and we're doing fitness. We're doing a bit of running. Got a McDonald's bag in their hand or KFC, getting out their parents' car with a blanket around them because they're a bit cold. And my impression of them walking to the training field was like, they don't want to be here. They really don't want to be here. They was using the Galaxy to try and get to college. Because when I spoke to parents, it was like, we don't want to play for Bruce Arena in Galaxy. We want to try and get to Stanford or UCLA. So that was a real learning curve because I've come from a background of like, you've got to give everything to try and play for the team. This was like, I'll turn up when I like, I'll eat what I like. And if it don't work here, I'm going to go to college somewhere else. So that was really a different mindset. So that was the first thing I said. I don't want to see any more Vans and I don't want to see people walking up with, McDonald's bag in their hand, getting ready for training in 15 minutes. So that was the way of being more professional. And you have a knock-on effect. I think if you come in prepared, you should already be thinking about training when you're in the car, not when you walk on the field. That's what I grew up with. So I was trying to give that experience to some of the kids. Some of them took it, some of them didn't take it. Jossie Sardes, who played for the Galaxy, he's played for numerous teams, MLS, played for the national team. That kid got it. He started thinking about it. So as a coach, if you give him one bit of information and it comes along, because of the background in England, I'm thinking, okay, I get it. So then I had to adjust a little bit to the American mentality, but also keeping the certain standards that I think you have to be an athlete.
Definitely, and that's, I mean, personally, that's what for me helped you. Maybe you tell me if I'm wrong. To establish yourself in thoughts, in the media, because it's not easy. Even though yes, you're coming from England, you have some sort of a credibility, but the way you adapted to the American, you blended into the American mentality, and you added value. That gave you the opportunity to become a voice, because you are a voice in there. Because trust, and that's for me. I don't want your recipe. I don't want your blueprint, but I want people to understand that you were part of the art of the game in the football, on the pitch, and around the pitch, and you start to know a little bit about the business of football, especially in America.
Yeah.
It's a different model. Let's put it this way. How did you deal from you stopping your career, getting into coaching, and then in the media with the business of football? What was your view on the business of football?
I think I've always been someone that if I'm going to go into something, I want to do some research. I want to find out about it. So I had that gap from when I retired to when I come to America. I was working with the BBC. I was working with, and even when I go back to Newcastle, even when I was at Newcastle, they wanted to speak to Alan Shearer. They wanted to speak to David Ginola, but that's not always accessible. So I would do it. And it gave me a great learning curve about how long you have on an interview, what to say in an interview, try and get the points over. So when I finished, and it's funny how life works out. When I used to go to Sky, there was a young guy called John Lyles. He used to be the runner, come down, meet me in reception, and take me up for Super Sunday or whatever program it was. And as my career was coming to an end, he was going up the ladder. So when I finished playing, he'd gone now to one of the executive producers and said, "I want you to come in and be an analyst on Sky, see if you would like to do it." So like my mentality is, I used to go in 2 hours before the show would start and look at the videos, look at the highlights, have an earpiece in my head. So he's talking to me about what's coming along. I used to work with a great lady, Claire Tomlinson, who still works for Sky. She's obviously, doesn't do as much as she used to do, but we would go through what we're saying. So the public, there was no hesitation. It was trying to be as smooth as possible, like we're having a conversation, but we knew what was coming along. So I did my homework. You can't just, we're not all lucky just be like Terry Henry and turn up and everybody knows who you are. You've got to, even as a player, played at a high level, you still got to sell yourself and, know the game and do your research. So when I come to America, I'd had that experience of being in front of a camera. But you are absolutely right. In England, we have a conversation. It's about the game. In America, you've got 45 seconds to get your point across. You have to look at the camera, talk to the audience. You've got to make sure that the points that you're coming across hit the moments. Because if you make it too big a picture about Arsenal, the way you're playing and what's that, if you just go around, they don't really want to know that. They want to know the heart and soul. What's the problem? And Andy Gray gave me the best advice I ever had doing TV. He said, go with your gut instinct. What makes you passionate about a game that you've just seen? Now, it could have been a defensive error by someone. It could have been a coaching substitution, something that you've done that, my friend. You've sat a game and thought, I can't believe they've done that. That's the something. Don't talk about the big picture. Talk about what's important to you at that moment, because that's unique. You've been in that situation. There's millions of people would love to have that opportunity. That there's an instant, but you've seen the inside. You maybe as a centre half, you think he's gone the wrong side. Why has he tried to win it there when he's left the big space here? Go with that instinct. Go with why has he done that, because that's the reason to a goal. So again, going back to when I was doing my coaching qualifications, that made me look at the game different. So when you're a player, I just looked at it as a fullback. I just looked, right, okay, I got this. This is what. When you're looking as a coach, you're looking at the whole 11 players. And then when you're looking at doing your pro license, you're looking at what the coach is going to do. You're looking at what the substitutions are going to do. So it gave me an insight. So to answer your question briefly is I did my homework. I went in, sat in front of people and find out what it's like to be in front of the media. I looked at the game a little bit different because of the coaching education, but also still kept that passion as a player, still understood that what I think the right and wrong things of defending or crossing a ball or anticipating where the ball is going to land. So it's not just sitting there talking about, oh, what I did 30 years ago and this is how the game's changed. I think to be one of the best, you have to think about the game. And listen, I'm nowhere near it, but I think I bring that to everyone tells me when I do my TV work is that, well, you're honest and you give an opinion. Well, that's what your job is to give. I don't just everybody's rubbish or this is great or think of something that gets you going. You know what I mean? Gets like talking to you as an ex-player gets me going different to maybe I would do as a journalist because I'm thinking he can get it and I can see it in your head. You say, oh yeah, I see that. I remember. So that's you take that into TV.
For me, I couldn't agree more. And what I always say in terms of this business of football, when you're a pundit, when you are, I would say, commentating on your peers or somebody else, is to be specific, as you said. Because when you're too broad, it's kind of you're going around the bush, and that's supposed to be doing that. You're supposed to be an expert. You're supposed to be an expert, and an expert has a sharp eye. Something that somebody else wouldn't be able to say. You've been, what you came from the old school British football, and you honestly evolved throughout the modern global football game. How do you see? I don't want to ask you, is he better, not better? That's not the point. Is what's the main takeaway that you take from this whole evolution? Because you've seen it all, and you're still, in a way, you're still in there. You're in America. It's going to be the World Cup, so you see how quick things are going. What's the most important thing for you throughout this evolution?
I think what's helped me with the game is having three kids, and they're all different, and they've all grown through their generation differently. Like my eldest son is totally different to my younger one, how they look at things and how they are with things, and I think that's when you look at the game of what it is and what it gives back now, the game hasn't changed. Look at the Aston Villa Arsenal game yesterday. That emotion of scoring is no different to when you played, and certainly no different than when I played. So the game is still the game. The game still has that passion. It has that excitement. It has that disappointment. It has every emotion that you can possibly have. And it's no different to when it happened in the 90s or 2000s to what's happening now. But I think the evolution that I've done is I've had the respect of the game, that the game is changing. VAR's come in. I remember when there was more substitutions. There was different rules that was coming along. So that you have to go with the changes. You have to go with that. If you sit still in any business, or particularly in sport, you're going to get pushed aside. You've got to keep evolving. And I did that as a player. And I think I've done that as a parent, because I'm totally different as a parent to when they was 4 or 5 to what I am now. Because when the kids was 4 or 5, I was like a sergeant major. Now I'm a bit more. Yeah, you are. You got to, and because we're ex-athletes, we're so used to being governed by getting up, going to bed, washing, what clothes we're wearing, how we're doing it,
It's so
and we
tough
do
to
that.
get out of this.
We do that to our kids.
It's so tough to get out, to leave that kind of mentality with your kids. Carry on.
It's like we have a certain standard, but my 25-year-old standards are totally different to me or my wife. So, me and my wife sit down sometimes, we have a coffee, think they haven't got a clue. It's our fault because that's how we brought them up. But they would, God forbid, how they try and survive how we used to survive, but, that's how life has changed, life's evolved. People need time, but I'm also a little bit that you still need the fundamentals of being a good person. You have to get on with it. There's nothing wrong with hard work. There's nothing wrong of rolling your sleeves up. There's nothing wrong of, taking criticism as long as it's done in the right way. That's not the issue. It's how you develop and change that around. So Yeah, I think that's the big part that I've sort of evolved as a person as well. I'm not the same Warren Barton I was when I was 22, 25. I've sort of opened up a little bit now. Whether it's for better or worse, I don't know.
That's always going to be remain a big
Yeah.
question, but it's up to the other people. Now, just to finish us off a little bit, if you were sitting down with a young a young fullback come and sit down with you, what's the one thing he needs to understand about pressure and leadership that you can give him?
Wow. I think always enjoy it. That even the difficult times. I'm a believer, as I said, whatever you give to the game, it will give you tenfolds back. So for a young player and I've got my young kid, 20 years of age, he's at Darlington, was at Inter Miami. Things changed there, so he wanted to go to England. He was born there. I've told him to go with Steve Watson, who's the coach at Darlington. He's playing there. And my advice to my son is work hard, give everything you got. But you've got to enjoy it. You've got to have fun. You've got to go out there and play. Yes, you can talk tactics about, and we did it the other day with him. He's gone in with he's gone in with a forward, they put the ball over the top, they've gone through and scored. And me and Steve Watson are saying the same thing. And Seb, as a defender, as soon as I go in there's a gap behind and someone's going to take that, whatever level you play. Now, whether it's conference level or the Premier League. So tactically, yes, I can give him that advice. Don't dive in, stay on your feet, show him inside, stay outside, don't overcover, don't let the ball go. I can do all that, but the bottom line is he's got to be in a mindset where he's got to enjoy what he's doing and you've got to appreciate what you're doing. And if you work hard, you can progress up the ladders. You've got to have luck and you've got to have ability, but you've also got to make sure you put the hard work in. And I think doesn't get lost. I love the program with Michael Jordan, Netflix, about how he's at a total level. He's the GOAT. To me, he's the best basketball player, or arguably maybe one of the best athletes. That's him and Muhammad Ali, to take on that responsibility as a person and how he is. But his mindset is the same thing. It's about working hard. It's about respecting the game. It's about the fundamentals. Is the same what he did in the 80s to what is now LeBron James is doing in 2025, 2026 going forward. So, that's my only advice that I would do to my son is, go out there, work hard. And, as well, good players, you tell them once. Really good players, you tell them once. Or sometimes you don't even have to tell them. Decent players, you tell them twice, 3 times. It's a habit. So, he's got to pick things up quickly. But that's the tactical side. But I always try and think about what I experienced. And when I was playing at my best, I was having fun. I was having fun and I was enjoying it. And it becomes a knock-on effect. Like sometimes you play a ball and you think, bloody hell, that was like inch perfect. How did it get there? It's like a David Beckham ball. And you think, you don't know how, but you're in that zone, you're in that confidence, you can do it. And then the next day, things are a little bit off and you shank it and it goes off for a throw-in. So, that's what you have to then be resilient and say, right, I'll go again, a reset and push forward. But that's what I think what we love about the game. 1 minute you can be great. I mean, look what's happened to Mo Salah. Mo Salah was the king, and now all of a sudden he's sitting on the bench. So, that's how things can change quickly in the game.
Now, to finish us off for real. Okay, you live two football lives, I would say. What connects the crazy gang kid to the Fox Sports analysis?
I've never had a bad game doing the Fox analyst, so I've never had a bad game. So, but you can't miss playing. I think playing for the crazy gang, playing for the entertainers, that's the most fulfilling part for me. But I do love my life. I do love my life now. I love the media. I'm very, very lucky. Although I work hard at it, I speak to a lot of my ex-colleagues and see them and what you're doing, and they're in the comfort zone. They're in their comfort zone. They go and play golf on a Thursday. They might go out for dinner at the weekend. They go on their holiday to Portugal, which is great life. Don't get me wrong. That's if that's what ticks your box, that's fine. But I'm always trying to challenge myself and to keep myself occupied and to keep my brain and my motivation there, because that's what gets me gets me going. I'm a granddad now. I've got 2 grandchildren, so I know that you've got to keep motivated and keep enjoying it. So yeah, I think playing is the best thing ever, and we miss it because you're retired a long time. You are retired a long time, but I think if you have the right mindset to appreciate your life and enjoy your life, and get out the comfort zone. Sometimes we get in a habit of just, oh, I don't want to do that, or why should I do that? I was always one of that. Even when I was playing and financially things was coming well, I would do things that maybe would put my family out sometimes. Like I might go and do an interview, or I might go to a school and do a presentation and things like that with new. But I wanted to do that. It was always something different going along. That's just me. I like keeping myself occupied.
So, last question: what do you want to be remembered for?
Being a good man, I think. Being a good man. Football wise is great. Lucky enough, I went and got my legacy cap here for England, so I went and picked that up. So I didn't get 100 caps like anybody else, but I got one. But I just want to remember being I think people do that when I speak to my old colleagues. Like they like me. I was a good man. I'm a good person. I've tried to do it. Listen, I've made mistakes. I've been an idiot sometimes, as we all have. But I've tried to learn from that. So yeah, I'd like people to say, yeah, I like him. He's a good guy. He's a good guy.
Trust me, I can tell you, I can testify you're a good guy. I like you, and I'm thanking you for coming along to join us because it was a pleasure for me, and I think it's going to be a pleasure for a lot of people. So thank you very much, Warren, for being here. That was
it's an absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. I really enjoyed it. As I said, it's great talking to younger players or players that have maybe just retired. Totally different. As I said, you've come to a foreign country. You've come out of your comfort zone, and we didn't know each other before this, but I can tell you're a good person as well. So I wish you all the best, my friend.
Thank you very much, and guys, until next time, keep working, keep working on your craft. That was Warren Barton on FBT, the Players Lounge, where the game gets down to business. Until next time, take care of yourself, and thank you very much. Bye bye.